Well, hello, and welcome to today's webinar titled Taste with Impact, Innovation and Taste Modulation, Enabling Positive Nutrition by the Kerry Health and Nutrition Institute. My name is William Bradford Nichols, and I am the editor of Nutrition Insight, a world-leading B2B news and insights website published by CNS Media. We are joined today by our expert speakers, David Deely, the Senior Insights Manager at Kerry, Dr. Alex Wu, the founder and CEO of W2O, and Catherine Chesky, a Research Development and Application Senior Scientist for Taste Innovation at Kerry. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you here. Well, in just a moment, our experts will discuss taste modulation and its potential to enhance positive nutrition. They'll examine the various facets of nutrition related to taste modulation, and will also tell us about consumer and market demands, innovative research, give us some case study examples, and walk us through some of the challenges and opportunities for future innovations with this dynamic and ever-evolving market. Following our speakers' presentations, we will have a Q&A session. Additionally, this webinar will be available on demand on nutritioninsight.com, and a link to view the on-demand webinar will be emailed to you following its conclusion. With that said, let's begin today's webinar with our speakers' presentations before we round off with our Q&A session. Without further ado, I pass it over to you, David.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Delighted to be here. Hello, everyone. Really excited to bring you through the consumer and market perspective of this particular piece. Obviously, that's a critical piece in anything from a food and beverage perspective to get it right from a consumer view. So I'm going to really start off the presentation in the future, really, is what I want to do. So at Kerry, we're really fortunate. We have a foresight program called Future Lens, which helps us to think about how the consumer world is evolving from a macro forces perspective, from the large scale shifts that are happening downward onto consumers, as well as the bottom up view from a consumer level. So one of the scenarios that emerges from Future Lens is Vitality Unlocked. So essentially, this is a provocation where we're seeing approaches to personal health becoming fully proactive, holistic, and integrated into everything that we do as consumers. And ultimately, it's about helping people, helping consumers to live better for longer without compromise, which is a really exciting space for us to think about. If we consider some of the macro forces that are driving us towards this world where consumers are proactive from their health perspective, the first thing we're looking at is from a technology point of view, we're seeing a huge rise in the fitness tracker market, where there are some estimations suggesting it'll be worth $116 billion by 2028. Which is a 19.2% CAGR. And that is significant because a lot of these are making really personalized recommendations about our fitness, about our health, about our nutrition, and ultimately nudging consumers in better to make better decisions about what they're consuming. We're also seeing from some of our own internal research at Kerry that almost 9 in 10 people are believing it's important to prioritize their physical and mental well-being. So this is really ramping up year on year, and we're seeing this proactivity towards health continuing to drive as a big force at a consumer level. We're also seeing huge pressure on our public health systems. So some estimations from the WHO and OECD and figures that are reported by Statista suggest that by 2050, there will be a 30% increase in the average per capita health expenditure, which obviously is really, really challenging for a lot of markets and societies to grapple with. And that's kind of driven by lots of factors, obviously growing populations as well as aging populations, having an impact there as well. And we're seeing a lot of evidence, a lot of scientific evidence coming out around supporting the idea of targeted or precision nutrition, and increasingly consumers tapping into that world, wanting to have, products that meet their specific health goals, and really that ramping up from a consumer and market perspective as well. So what is driving us towards Vitality Unlocked? Well, today we're starting to have a clearer picture of our health through a growing understanding of ingredients and scientific developments. Tomorrow, what we're going to see is proactive health becoming a reality by unlocking the potential of technology and personalizing solutions to individuals. So it's a really exciting space for us to think about. And I really want to bring you into that world of 2030 and beyond. So think about it. Following decades of our healthcare systems becoming progressively overburdened, public health is now a top priority for governments and societies who are facing severe threats from rising global diseases, from pandemics, and the impacts of pollution. So these increasingly stringent approaches to enforce proactive health with interventions against unhealthy behaviours to alleviate that strain are a priority. They're a top priority for many as pieces and the elements and prices of care skyrocket. Those dimensions of health and well-being have blurred and broadened to occupy a bigger share of our lives as consumers, as people. And as society reorients itself towards more healthier or life-affirming alternatives across every industry. So health is no longer seen as a standalone issue, but rather interconnected with every aspect of our life. And obviously, the food and drink sector plays a huge role in fulfilling this vitality first agenda. So we now have a deeper knowledge of the impact of food and nutrition and what it does to our health and how it makes us feel. And well-being has evolved away from restrictive practices to a balance between health and hedonism without compromise, all in the name of improved vitality. So this greater perception of health has been fueled by technology, by trackers, AI assistants, as well as science. So that greater understanding which is emerging, whether it be from microbiome or nutrition and molecular elements of food. So all of these advances have combined to allow us to make better choices. And ultimately allowing us not only to live longer, but actually to live better lives for longer as well. And taste is a key component in this scenario where consumers are unwilling to compromise. They want to live life to the fullest. They want to have the benefits of all of the functional foods that they're consuming, but they don't want any of the compromises. So let's get into what's leading us to this particular scenario. So while it may seem far out from a scenario perspective, there is a growing consumer proactivity towards health and wellness, driving growth for consumer health products as defined by the figures that you see here from Euromonitor as the aggregation of over-the-counter vitamins and dietary supplements, sports nutrition and weight management and well-being. These are large and robust markets, and the global consumer health market is projected to reach €400 billion by 2028. From 328 billion today. So it is a significant rise that we're seeing growing in this space. We're seeing some of the consumer and industry specific shifts that are leading us towards this space. So 9 out of 10 consumers are looking for food and beverages with added health benefits that help them to achieve their health goal. We're also seeing that half, or just under half, 49% of these consumers are agreeing that clinically backed or scientifically backed ingredients incentivize their purchase of fortified and functional. And that is becoming increasingly important as consumers have more information at their fingertips and becoming more informed and educated on some of those spaces as well. And overall, we're seeing a 3.9% growth in the annual launches of supplements between 2022 and 2023. So all of these kind of driving towards what we're seeing around consumer proactivity towards health. Over the past 5 years in particular, when we look at some of our own research at Kerry and some of our research partners as well, we've illustrated or we've seen a move towards a world where science and nature are colliding. Again, something we have seen through our Future Lens research as well. And ultimately, what this gives rise to is vitality unlocked, where consumers are seeking a balanced upgrade to the food and drink they consume, combining the evidence granted by research and science that establishes the trust, which is critical, with the familiar feel-good pleasure associated with nature's bounty. So all of that coming together into a space of vitality unlocked. In today's market, consumer behavior has evolved significantly. Although consumers are now less driven by a fear of illness than they may have been, say, post-COVID, they're more price sensitive and they continue to purchase health and wellness products despite the price sensitivity. So interestingly, they are willing to trade up for quality and value over the lowest priced options. So we've kind of drilled into that in a bit more detail. What do they mean by value in this particular market or in this particular context? So consumers are prioritizing the products that align with their needs and wants, so not just the lowest price point. And it underscores an importance for health and wellness brands to really understand what drives value. So beyond the obvious of health benefits and some of the other pieces that are coming through, consumers want products that taste good. 59% of them, in fact, which is crucial also for a repeat purchase. So they also seek ingredients that are real and authentic in achieving their health goals, highlighting the importance of authentic in taste. So taste really is key here in this market. And while price sensitivity is a factor, the demand for quality, for value and authenticity in health and wellness products remains strong. And actually what is crucial here is that taste is really, really important in shaping positive value perceptions for those consumers as well. So we've gone into the NPD that's happening in this space. We've had a look at what that is doing globally, and some of the themes that we've observed when it comes to vitality unlocked, to functional foods, and the role that taste has to play are represented, and we're going to dive into those in a bit more detail one by one now. So first up is blurred lines. So if we look at this particular space, the distinction between dietary supplements and traditional food is really blurring in this space. And consumers are increasingly looking for the food that they consume to also achieve their specific health goals that they would have otherwise have looked for in supplements in times gone by. As consumers have now more options to compare, essentially their repertoire is a lot broader than if they were just buying into a functional space. And this theme is driven by a demand for convenience, for holistic nutrition, with consumers favouring food formats over pills. And brands are innovating with functional products that provide both nourishment and targeted health benefits as well. If we look at some of the products that are popping up in the market all around the world, which kind of bring this theme to life, the first one is from Just Legends in Germany, and they offer a tasty performance boost. And essentially what they've done is they've clashed energy drinks, they've clashed supplements, they've clashed carbonated drinks. And what they have is a range of products that are really tasty, yuzu dragon fruit, strawberry, raspberry, but also they contain no sugar. And they have a functional element to them. So it's about giving the consumer a performance boost in a format that's really tasty and really good from their perspective. The other example is from Japan, and it's a sensory boost, and that is essentially a carbonated soft drink, which has GABA and L-theanine and hemp seed extract, which supports the consumer to relax and chill out, as you see very clearly called out on the pack. Again, without having to compromise on taste. It's the two elements coming together and really, I suppose, blurring that line of what's expected from a consumer perspective in this space. The next theme that we're seeing is, sorry, let me start that again. So the second theme that we're seeing is functional pleasure. So consumers are increasingly seeking supplements that support well-being without sacrificing on their enjoyment. So they want products that are convenient, that offer health benefits, and still provide a satisfying experience. So I think we're all familiar as consumers that is a nice place to be when it comes to the food and beverage products that we're consuming. So what we're seeing coming through is, tasty vitality becoming a key element here for consumers as they look for foods, for supplements, for products that not only deliver the nutrients, but also taste good and are easy to use, such as, vitamin gummies or functional drinks mixes. At the same time, there is an element of excitement that consumers want here as well, and with consumers desiring those enjoyable experiences. So innovative flavors and formats are really important here, while still meeting their health goals. And lastly, I think that whole element of taste therapy, combining pleasure with wellness, where supplements are both comforting and effective, offering clear benefits without any unpleasant taste surprises, which is, something that we see across the board. But some of the examples that we see, again, the first example that I have here on the left-hand side is a mood chew from Prepare Your Mind, or PYM. It is from the US, and essentially they're made with adaptogens, and really, I suppose, supports the consumer to relax, to unwind, and also shows that it's not just limited to beverage. There's a lot of stuff happening in the space around, sweets and candy that can help consumers to really relax, to get a functional piece, but also at the same time having a positive taste experience. And then this example from Japan, called Sleepy Chocolates, or GABA for sleep, is really fascinating, to be honest. I was really intrigued when I saw this particular one popping up, essentially containing lots of different elements, which allow the consumers to alleviate stress, and really to support some for those consumers to kind of relax, unwind before bed through having a really tasty chocolate, which sounds quite cool from my perspective, to be honest. And then our third theme that we're going to get into is this idea of personalization. So today's consumer, they really expect personalization in all aspects of their lives, including functional nutrition. And I think younger consumers and Gen Z in particular, which we hear so much about these days, are demanding more than just the functional benefit. They want nutrition tailored to their own unique lifestyles, their own health goals, and their own preferences as well. And that's not even just from a nutrition perspective, it's from a taste perspective as well. So to stand out, brands must embrace these personalization theme that's coming through by offering customized supplement regimens, mix and match ingredients, or adaptive packaging for busy lifestyles. And this approach helps brands build deeper connections with consumers as well, fostering loyalty by making each of them feel personally understood. So success in this market is not just about ingredients, but delivering them in a way that aligns with the individual needs and the aspirations of the consumers that we're trying to target. The two examples that I've brought to life here, the first one is from the UK. So it's from Vittel, and essentially they're using, or what they've positioned it as, better technology. So they've added DNA testing to their personalized micronutrient line. So essentially you do a DNA test, which is also combined with a blood test in some instances. It's reviewed by a nutritionist, and essentially it makes, personalized recommendations to consumers based on, posting that back and then and sharing it back out with them. The other example is from South Africa, and it's called Tailored by Talix. So again, achieving personal goals like immunity, like digestive health. They essentially create evidence-based, tailor-made dietary supplements for consumers that are made to order. And they've actually recently expanded to offer customized solutions for children as well, all based on blood and DNA tests combined. So again, some interesting pieces that we're seeing coming through from a market point of view as well. So when we consider the world of the consumer then, and I suppose what's really driving the consumer and shaping this future of functional foods and the benefits that they want to achieve, I think going back to what we discussed at the earlier part of the presentation, our macro environment, the pressures that are on our system, particularly our health systems, is having a spectrum of impact across our markets. Some consumers are stating larger changes in their shopping behavior. Some are, I suppose, looking for more dietary and supplements in their foods. But consumers overall are more aware of their health and they want to manage it proactively. So it's linked back to a cultural force that we see around invigorating well-being, which is a massive macro force driving, consumers towards that proactive health. Consumers in this space are looking for products that meet a specific health goal. So improved immunity, better digestion, enhanced mental clarity, for example. There's also a growing demand for products that are sustainably sourced and contain natural, authentic ingredients. So they're looking for transparency in the sourcing and production of their food and beverages. And there are also drivers coming to the fore with ingredient quality more important now than ever, and science-backed ingredients as consumers become more aware and more educated in this space. I think the whole idea around kind of convenience and on-the-go nutrition is really key here as well, as our lives become busier, and that driving the need for convenient, ready-to-eat products that still offer functional benefits. And I think there's lots of generations where often like meals are blurring or meal times are blurring, but at the same time, consumers still need their protein, their micronutrient intake. So you see items like, protein bars, ready-to-drink beverages, functional snacks, all popping up on the shelf all the time. I think key to all of these is taste. Taste is king, particularly in the functional and fortified space, which has expanded into nearly all categories now at this point. And again, going back to that point where because there's a broader range of products within the consumer's repertoire, it means that scrutinization is much bigger. So consumers are unwilling to compromise. We've also took a look at the some of the data from a product sales perspective as well. And according to Nielsen's IQ Global Wellness Report, we're seeing 30% of consumers now seeking out lower sugar when buying food and beverage, which is up 3 points from a year ago. And it does differ by region as well, of course. But really, I suppose that drive towards sugar alternatives really increasing in popularity from a consumer perspective as well. So, stevia, agave, monk fruit, natural sources really are what consumers are looking for in this space. Ultimately, I do want to sum up on a point from our experts that we spoke to from a Future Lens perspective within Vitality Unlocked, and even just from a broader perspective in the industry as well. Tony Hunter is a food futurist, saying the biggest impact on what we eat will be the personalization of our diets. As we continue to explore our genetics, our microbiome, we'll come to understand just how individual we are in our nutritional responses to food. But actually, one of the other quotes that really stood out to me when I was pulling together this presentation was from Mark David, an author and founder of the Institute for Psychology of Eating, saying nourishment is not just about nutrition. Nourishment is the nutrients in the food, the taste, the aroma, the ambience of the room, the conversation at the table, the love, the inspiration, the cooking, and the joy of the entire eating experience. And I think that's really key in this space to get right. Consumers want the whole package. So that's it for my piece. I'll now pass you over to Alex Wu, who will talk you through a taste modulation deep dive. Thank you.
Thank you, David. This is Alex. Thanks for coming. So how do you make better foods for positive nutrition? So one of the ways is taste modulation. So I want to talk about taste modulation as a field and its neuroscience foundation and the enabling ingredient technology that make it all possible. So I will have this summary in 6 parts. I want to start with basic concepts. So taste modulation is a technology field that's composed of taste modulator ingredients. As a class, they are usually tasteless, but for a reason I will explain, under 5 different mechanisms, they can make basic taste either higher, lower, or somewhat change in temporal profile through understanding of contemporary taste and smell neuroscience. In recent years, the science in neuroscience has enabled or understanding of flavor is really a cross-modal integration of all 5 senses: taste, smell, sight, sound, and touch. And any one of these other senses can be used to modulate basic taste, like sweetness. So what are the 5 basic mechanisms? Flavor detection at the receptors in our mouth and nose, and the flavor perception in the brain is really one of the most important fundamental mechanisms applied to all taste modulation. Cross-modal correspondence refers to the integration or cross-hand saltiness in sodium reduction. And mixture suppression refers to, in the 5 basic tastes, one taste under the correct concentration and condition can suppress another taste. And this is the fundamental mechanism that we leverage for using sweetness to mask bitterness. Perceptual constancy is a neuropsychology phenomena that we can translate and into actionable formulation technique called layering of sugar. So sweetness modulator technology map is here. We have basically 9 different techniques that you can use to make sweeter without sugar, or make high potency sweetener taste more like sugar. So I will not have time to talk about PAM, which is to make things sweeter, osmolite, which is to cut lingering, or mouthfeel agent to give you back the sugar mouthfeel. I do want to talk about the 2 most commonly used and the cheapest way of making things sweeter without sugar, which is sweet aroma and FMP. So nothing is easier or more cost effective than using sweet aroma as a way to modulate sweetness. So prior association and cross-modal integration between taste and smell, what's the mechanism? So when we sense a sweet aroma in the nose, we think there's something sweeter in our mouth. And molasses distillate is one way to do this. When we distill molasses, what comes over with the steam are these 5-compound furfural, furfuryl alcohol called furanols. All of them are FEMA aroma chemicals. They smell sweet, sugary, honey, caramel. So a 65 ppm as consumed of this distillate will give you 1 to 2% Brix, which is about 25% increase of any sweetener. It can be sugar, it can be erythritol, it can be stevia. So sweet aroma is one of the way I would like to talk and ask you to consider. The next one is FMP, flavoring with modifying property, is a class of compound themselves is tasteless under the FEMA limit, but they serve to enhance the flavor primarily and then enhance the sweetness as a side benefit in beverages and food. So there are more than 30 of these FMPs. I'm listing here the 3 best ones. GSG is the first one. These are enzymatically modified stevia glycoside. As you add more glucose to the stevia glycoside, it becomes less and less sweet and eventually not sweet, but highly water soluble. Under FEMA 4728, the most famous one, and under 175 ppm itself is tasteless, but it enhanced the sweetness by about 25%. And RabM is the second example, a few FEMA number depending on how it's made. This 4922 is made by farming and extraction, and a lowly 24 ppm is tasteless, but it make other things sweeter and labeled as natural flavor, just like GSG. Allulose below 2% under FEMA 4897 is another FMP, but it also serves as an osmolyte, cutting the linger, and it's also labeled as natural flavor. So FMP is actually a controversial area. I would like to suggest that if you use FMP, be very careful to follow all FEMA guidelines. There are 3 publications over the years covering the do's and don'ts, and you cannot combine 2 of them. You can only pick one and use them. So the second topic of taste modulation is saltiness modulation. So how do you make things saltier without sodium chloride? There are 4 ways you can do this. I only want to talk about using umami to enhance salty. Earlier, I talked about prior association, which is 2 senses together. If you see one later on, you call up the other. So umami is another basic taste like saltiness. There are 2 different receptors, but umami is the least understood and the most underutilized sodium reduction or salt enhancement technique. So umami is best delivered through clean label ingredients that's high in glutamate. It can be yeast extract, it can be tomato, or like I'm showing here, mushroom. These are all natural extract that are high in glutamate, which is the compound responsible for umami, which is delicious. And in Asian cuisine that are more flavor congruent, you can also use seaweeds and miso and other plant material, either extracted or fermented, that are high in glutamate. I cannot talk about salt enhancement without talking about curcumi. Curcumi salty also come prior association congruent. So higher curcumi, higher salty. So umami is delicious, curcumi is rich. is that sensation of the slow cooked stew and the highly aged cheese. So there are three things that we know that deliver high kokumi. Two are tripeptides. The one on the left is the most potent one, glutamic valine glycine. The one in the middle, it's a similar. It's a glutamic cysteine glycine, which is also called glutathione. They, like the third one, newly discovered chloride salt. They all trigger calcium sensing receptor and give you kokumi, which is not a taste but a sense, as a sensation. So high kokumi, high saltiness, two ways of making things saltier, umami and kokumi. So let's move into other better for you food for positive nutrition, and how do you make them taste better? So zero alcoholic drink is very trendy with millennials. So ethanol is a sort of a magical ingredient, just like sugar. It's multifunctional. So ethanol at high concentration, actually people will think it's sweet. And at low concentration, some people will think it's bitter depending on their TES2R38 bitterness receptor mutation. And everybody knows that and will rate ethanol at any concentration to be warming. So matching the ethanol taste is like, I don't think anybody in the world can claim they cracked the code, but you can come close of creating a experience as exciting and rewarding as ethanol. So I have these hypotheses that, for example, you can simulate the ethanol bitterness through other bitter compound like glucosinolate, which is the bitter compounds in kale and broccoli, and it triggered the same TES2R38 bitterness receptor as ethanol. And the trigeminal part, don't use a heating agent, use a low warming agent like cinnamaldehyde and cinnamon. So on the right hand side, I'm lumping all vitamins and protein fibers and many functional ingredients all under what I call supplement here broadly. So supplements are known to be having off flavor and off taste. So if there's an off odor, you can remove, reduce mass, and block them. If there's off taste in the area of bitterness, then this is where I want to talk about the last and the last and the next section, which is how do you make bitter foods that are better for you but taste better. So bitterness is detected by 26 bitterness receptor in human out of 40 in our mouth. It has two major features. One is called broadly tuned. So this means one receptor can be turned on by multiple bitter rents. So for example, TES2R14 can be turned on by 150 bitter compounds. The other feature is many on many mode, which means one bitterant like caffeine can turn on multiple receptors like 5 of them, and sucralose can turn on 10 of them. So that was on receptors. On the bitterant or bitter compounds that neuroscientists call agonists, we know there's like to animals, there's 1,000 bitter compounds in the world. To human, there's about 100, more than 100 bitter compounds in nature, basically in our foods, not counting the artificial ones. And bitter compound tends to be low molecular weight, hydrophobic compounds that binds to the bitterness receptor loosely. So bitter blocker, I estimated there are about 30 of them in nature. The 10 best ones are listed here in this technology map, and they can be from lemon like citronellol. They can be from yeast like Mask 101. It can be from mushroom like Cure IQ. It can be naringenin, from grapefruit, the AMP from milk. What I do want to talk about are the most effective one and cost-effective and functionally effective one. Sugarcane distillate is the first one. So sugarcane distillate is not molasses distillate, but it's distilled from sugarcane waste product, the leaves and the stalks. When you do that, what come over with the steam are a whole bunch of leaf compounds, but amongst them, there are 5-bitterness blocker like cyclocitral, the dimensional, phenylethyl alcohol, which is rosy, and the last two alcohol are mushroomy. These are all aroma chemical, but they are present at very low concentration. So in some way we don't fully understand. They don't work in the nose, but they work in the mouth and serve as bitterness blocker, make a variety of bitter compound less bitter, including stevia, caffeine, chlorogenic acid in coffee, theobromine in chocolate. And it does has a FEMA number 4816, and 500 ppm or less will effectively make things less bitter, and the label is natural flavor. So the next and the last compound is 1,3-propanediol. This is the isomer of PG, which is 1,2-propanediol. It's approved under FEMA as a flavor solvent, but recently it's found to be a bitterness blocker and a sweetness enhancer moderately. And it is, as opposed to PG, which is artificial, this 1,3-propanediol is made through fermentation, so it's considered natural. It has a FEMA number as a flavor solvent, and the solubility is high, and you can use it as part of your compounded flavor for bitterness blocking functions. So what is defined by me as what are the key points? What do they mean to you? And what can you do about them? This is the last slide. So I talk about the 5 different mechanisms enabling us to understand and design taste modulator for 3 things: sweetness enhancement, saltiness enhancement, and bitterness blocker. So what that means is nowadays the clean label sugar reduction and salt reduction is definitely possible through these natural bitterness or in general natural taste modulators. All of them are labeled as natural flavor. So what can you do about them is in creating flavor or creating beverages that reduce sugar. Try the sweet aroma, try the FMP. They definitely 2 out of the best. And when you're working on salt reduction, increasing the salty perception, now with KCL, I recommend you to try umami and kakumi in natural form, like vegetable extract. And the third and last point that you can do is if you're working on bitterness blocker, definitely start with the sugarcane distillate and 1,3-propanediol, lowest cost in use and effective. So that's what I have, and happy to answer questions later on at the end. So Catherine, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, David and Alex, for your great insight. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Chesky, a senior scientist for our Global Taste Innovation team. I began as an intern at Kerry 6 years ago. Fascinated by flavor modulation, I quickly learned all the complexities and challenges that exist in this realm. The Taste Innovation team plays a crucial role in researching and developing novel compounds, and in close collaboration with our flavorists, creating Kerry Taste Sense modulators to enable healthier and more nutritionally sustainable products that taste great. The development of taste modulators begins with focusing in on a specific taste challenge, whether that's masking, mouthfeel, or flavor enhancement. Expert research scientists identify key flavor compounds from natural sources. a method for extraction by means of green technologies determined to obtain the compound of interest in the highest purity and abundance. Once the taste modulator has been isolated and created, it is sensorially evaluated in simple base solutions and in parallel screened by regulatory. Food regulations are very complex around the world, which pose a hurdle when trying to identify and creating new materials. After flavor modulation capabilities and sustainability are confirmed, flavors build a complete flavor tool to be sold commercially. As stated previously by David, consumers are leaning hard into proactive health and nutrition, but not wanting to compromise on taste. Now, I'd love to dive in and give specific case study examples of how we are developing novel ingredients to combat these taste challenges. My focus will be on 3: sodium reduction, masking bitterness, and creating nutritionally optimized and sustainable non-animal-based fats. In my first case study, I will focus on how innovation is addressing sodium reduction from the molecular perspective. High sodium diets contribute to 1.89 million deaths annually. Innovation's focus is to develop sodium reduction solutions that lower sodium levels without compromising on taste and improving the overall nutrition of foods. Sodium reduction in snacks, soups, and sauces are a major challenge in the final project. Reducing the salt in these foods has a major impact on the taste, texture, and mouthfeel. Existing solutions in taste modulation market use different minerals like potassium, magnesium, calcium, or zinc, but these can add bitterness, sourness, or astringency rather than just the pure salty attribute sought after. It is imperative to research and develop novel compounds that can enhance salty perception without bringing any of these flavor off notes to the final food and beverage product. Innovation is addressing salt perception from the molecular perspective. As Alex mentioned, it is possible now to isolate molecules that directly affect the taste receptors on our tongues. To obtain these molecules of interest, we attack the challenge in 2 parts. First, we identify the molecules through literature research or chromatography. And second, we develop the best method to get the compound of interest in highest abundance by the most cost-effective means, and of course, sustainably. To begin, the molecules of interest known to have salt perception enhancement capabilities must be identified. Scientists are able to refer back to existing literature and use technologies such as liquid chromatography and mass spectrometry to identify and monitor the abundance of the compound in different raw materials. Once a raw material containing the compound of interest is decided upon, the next step is to source it. While it is very important to develop unique and highly effective salt enhancement tools, it's equally as important to find a sustainably sourced raw material that contains this compound. Clean label investigation is required, ensuring that the raw material is vegan, halal and kosher suitable, non-GMO derived, and potentially organic. After the sustainably sourced raw material is confirmed suitable, the salt-enhancing compound is isolated and concentrated. Our sites are focusing on green technologies, offering various methods of extraction and isolation. For example, applying physical separation via filtration or performing centrifugation. Next, screening for efficacy in the salt enhancement compound is done in a simple application, such as a salted chip or a salt solution. Innovation is even using a new adapted technology to assist with evaluating taste modulator impacts called Taste Station. This novel taste technology is an automated sample delivery system. It allows rapid characterization of taste properties of liquid samples through a game-like interactive algorithm. This allows sensory evaluations to be done in much less time, using less resources, and confirming that the taste modulator works. Following the confirmation, innovation scientists collaborate closely with flavorists to create a final flavoring solution. Our creation teams work from a toolbox of essential building blocks. These building blocks build precise flavor modulation keys that are able to address all 3 stages of salty perception, including the upfront salty impact, the middle saltiness, and the longevity. These proprietary solutions allow us to push the boundaries in sodium reduction, achieving nearly 50% reduction in some applications without compromising on taste. Identifying and isolating salt-enhancing molecules from natural raw materials is a perfect example of using nature and science to optimize nutrition for consumers. In my second case study, I would like to address how it is possible to utilize waste stream raw materials to develop innovative molecules for flavor modulation. Now more than ever, food and beverages are being fortified with proteins, minerals, and functional ingredients. These add offensive off-notes such as bitterness, sourness, and it often changes the mouthfeel of the final products. Innovation is searching to find new molecules to block off-notes such as bitterness and to expand our toolbox of building blocks for our recreation teams. Novel flavor modulation molecules that Alex mentioned can exist not only in a wide variety of raw materials, from natural botanical extracts, vegetables, fruits, and ferments, but it can also exist in byproduct valorization streams. Side stream raw materials often go to waste and are discarded. This is not only lost profits, but it adds to the waste in landfills, further contributing to pollution in our world. Waste raw materials have the potential to be upcycled and be turned into unique flavor modulators to address challenges such as masking off-notes while promoting sustainability and maximizing use of the raw materials. Our innovation team is working on just this. For example, a very common waste stream raw material today is spent coffee grounds. It is estimated that annually 60 million tons of spent coffee grounds globally are generated, and most of it is being sent to landfills. It's essential to determine an environmentally friendly, efficient, and low-cost method to upcycle and create useful taste modulators. The process for unlocking the potential begins with analysis of the composition of the spent coffee grounds. What kind of beneficial molecules for taste modulation could it contain? We refer to existing literature, collaborate with experts, and perform analytics to discover its potential. Next, we extract, aiming to isolate the molecules of interest. In this instance, with spent coffee grounds, an alkaline hydrogen peroxide, or AHP treatment, can be performed to separate the wasted raw material into two components. From SCGs alone, we have successfully isolated two different interesting compounds that can enrich our building block portfolio. One is effective in masking bitterness, which could be incorporated into a final flavor in a functionally ingredient fortified beverage, and the other a potentially ideal natural derived flow agent or carrier for spray drying. As David mentioned, supplements and functionals are trending right now in the market, and developing maskers to reduce functional ingredient off-notes, the consumers are not only able to enjoy the health benefits, but they're also able to enjoy the taste. Innovation consistently works towards identification of molecules to enable creation of better tasting, nutritionally fortified food and beverage, all derived from a completely natural and sustainably supporting waste stream raw material. My last and final case study will be addressing flavor modulation from a different perspective. Instead of extracting molecules of interest from material or waste stream materials, innovation has made it possible to formulate blocks to address flavor challenges. This example focuses on uniquely constructed fat blocks. Regulation and local nutritional guidelines around high salt, sugar, and fat are reshaping industry norms. Furthermore, demands for health-conscious products and tailored nutrition has intensified. Brands are expected to produce better for people foods that don't compromise on taste. Fat reduction is an up-and-coming focus to improve the nutrition of food. Additionally, companies are creating plant-based that are removing animal fat completely. Removing or lessening animal fat has a major impact on the flavor and mouthfeel of these food products. Plant-based meat product, for example, lack authentic tallow fatty flavor and typically contain high amounts of palm and coconut oil to make up for this. This is not only decreasing the dietary value, adding unhealthy saturated fats, but it's also contributing to adverse environmental impacts. Today, the palm oil production negatively impacts ecosystems and species due to deforestation. Coconut oil, while slightly more environmentally friendly, has regulatory issues regarding allergens. It is critical to create non-palm and non-coconut-based innovative ingredients that are able to mimic animal fat's physiochemical and taste properties. This will allow fat reduction of saturated and animal-based fats while not impacting mouthfeel or taste. To combat this challenge, innovation has made it possible to formulate unique fat blocks. Material science methodologies are applied to understand the textural, thermal, and chemical properties of the animal fats. This in combination with reaction chemistry and close collaboration with sensory and analytical scientists, fat blocks can be developed from natural and sustainable sources. Innovation research scientists begin the process to match the animal fat, for example, a beef tallow, by examining both the chemical property and the physical properties of it. The chemical properties of the animal fat can be analyzed using gas chromatography to understand its flavor components. Its physical properties are analyzed using differential scanning calorimetry or tribology to analyze melting points and correlating tribology data to actual mouthfeel perception. All information is brought together to select ingredients that contain the specific properties identified to formulate a completely new fat tool that can match the meltability, mouthfeel, and even authentic fatty flavor of real animal fat. Once the animal-free fat block is created, flavorists build the final taste modulator. These complete modulators have capabilities to amplify fat perception while reducing the amount of overall fat in the product. In addition, flavorists can add top notes that create greater fatty type flavor, allowing consumers to have sustainable animal-free food products that are nutritionally optimized and, of course, taste great. In summary, from identifying salt-enhancing molecules, creating masking compounds through utilizing waste stream materials, and mimicking animal fat, we will continue to evolve our portfolios to tackle some of the world's most vital food and health challenges. Our modulation portfolio is the tool that enables and empowers us to bring positive nutrition to billions of people globally. With the ability to reduce salt and sugar while maintaining saltiness and sweetness, replicating full-bodied mouthfeel, and muting off notes. It is a continuous journey as consumers are looking for products that not only offer health benefits, but also taste good. Please join us as we craft together solutions that never compromise on the taste experience. I appreciate your attention, and I would love to answer questions at the end. Thank you.
Well, a big thanks to our speakers for their insightful presentations. Once again, this is William Bradford Nichols from Nutrition Insight, and I'll now host a Q&A session with our experts. Some great questions have already been submitted, so let's get started. David, I believe this first question would be for you. One of our viewers says, how can a consumer perception of positive nutrition changed in recent years, and what role does taste modulation play in this shift?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I suppose what we've seen through the data, through observing consumer behavior, is that whole perception of positive nutrition has evolved significantly in previous years. There's a growing understanding, firstly, of ingredients and scientific developments, which is leading to a much clearer picture of health. So consumers are becoming more proactive about their health. They're driving demand for functional foods, for beverages, for supplements in that space. So they believe it's important to prioritize their physical and mental well-being, which is increasingly being aided by measurable data, by personalized data that's specific to them and their bodies. So it's driven by, I suppose, those top-down forces that are shaping consumers' behaviors, their attitudes. And we also see it through our Future Lens program, where, we're envisaging that scenario of Vitality Unlocked, where every macro force is really pushing us towards a space where, it's about people who want to live better lives for longer. They don't want to have any compromise. There's no such thing as restrictive practices in that future. So everything within that space, so macro shifts, public policy, measurable body trackers, technology, is influencing the emergence of that scenario. So a significant 86% of people, as we would have seen in the presentation, are really prioritizing their physical and mental well-being. And that ongoing, I suppose, proliferation of health into a broader sense is continuing to drive forward. And within that, taste modulation plays a critical role because, it encourages, firstly, the initial trial of the product, because if it tastes good, that's great, but also the repeat consumption of that consumer's favorite product. So it's a key driver as well in shaping the value perception of products too. So consumers are really looking for products that not only offer them their health needs, but also taste good. So it's really the and consumer, as we refer to it in Kerry, which is, not always easy to meet, for sure. They're tricky. But I think, some of the evidence that's presented by our speakers has really kind of showed that, taste modulation is kind of driving forward and supporting the consumer to be able to achieve it all.
All right. Well, thank you, David. That was great. Alex, I believe this next one would be for you. One of our viewers says, on bitterness blockers, can you talk about another one similar to AMP?
Yeah, so AMP is a good one. It's a adenosine monophosphate. It's a nucleotide similar to the IMP and GMP. Structurally, they're very similar, but functionally, they're very different. As many of you knows that the IMP and GMP are umami boosters, whereas AMP, which are like the reaction product from the I plus G, are bitterness blocker. It is one of the earliest reported natural bitterness blocker found in nature, like in milk, and we're not too sure how it blocks, but it's probably blocking gasteusin within the bitter taste cells, not at the receptor and not downstream. It's inside the cells. And it may be the reason that when we add milk to coffee, the coffee becomes less bitter. We not only have a little bit of lactose through bitterness masking through mixture suppression, but also the naturally present AMP in milk may be blocking the taste cell translation inside the cell directly. So both bitterness masking and bitterness blocking delivered by something like milk, we add, but we probably do not necessarily know why. But it is less bitter because of the AMP. That has been reported. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Fascinating. Well, we have time for one more, and I think, Catherine, this will be for you. One of our viewers asks or says, organic is such a huge up and coming push. Is it possible that these taste modulators can be made organic?
Yes. Hi. Great question. Yeah, absolutely. Organic is a huge push. And our focus right now for our innovation team at Current is doing just that. We have a lot of existing blocks already in our flavor modulation toolbox, but we are really looking right now into creating an organic version of each one. Since the taste modulators are already developed from raw materials, as long as we can source a sustainably or an organic, sustainably sourced raw material, we can work closely with farmers, organic vendors, and we can develop the flavor modulators from that. It may take some reformulation, but our expert scientists are really able to accommodate for this. So to answer your question, yes, 100%. Organic is possible for all of these flavor modulators. Thank you for that great question.
All right, well, thank you. Great to know. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. For further insights on taste modulation and positive nutrition, feel free to visit Kerry Health and Nutrition Institute's website at www.khni.kerry.com. I'd like to thank today's speakers for sharing their insights and offer a big thank you to all of our viewers around the world for joining us today. Goodbye for now.